In the last year or so, we've seen so many new budget boards in the custom keyboard hobby, but a lot of them do have some compromises. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the Block67 by Eng Studio, a CNC'd modified Bakaneko 65 based off the files from Katano. Is this worth it at $160? Today, we're going to find out. Before I start this video, thank you to PCBWay for sponsoring. PCBWay is great for prototyping, providing their various services. I've personally used the CNC option, and for a one-off, I was pretty happy with the results. Their CNC service offers a huge variety of materials for all your needs and a decent lead time. They also offer PCB services, 3D printing, and much more. The turnaround times are quite decent and the website is super easy to use. They offer this at an affordable price with great reliability, and are more than willing to help you with questions. For more, visit PCBWay.com. Let's get back to the video. This is an early unit of the board, so final packaging might vary in some minor areas. Upon opening, we're greeted with the O-ring, as the mounting style the Bakaneko uses is friction fit. This durometer is 55A and will be included. Next up is the tried and true C3 unified daughter board, with the JST cable and hardware included. Then is the clear adhesive bump-ons, and I was sent various plates to try, including POM, which is pretty soft and flexible, the classic aluminum, and FR4, which is made from the same material as the PCB. Brass and polycarbonate plate options are also offered, with aluminum being the default included in the kit. I was also sent 2 PCBs and was very happy with this. I'll get into that later. Last up is the board. This unit is in the ewhite finish and looks pretty nice. I'm typically not a fan of e-coating, but this did feel and look pretty good. No inconsistencies whatsoever, and of course other colors are available. It is worth noting that the ewhite finish is $5 more, and it does add to production costs, which is why that price is higher. For this build, I opted to use TX clip-ins. These stabs have been extremely popular at the moment, and for a good reason. The box says Win keyless. This simply means it has a 7U wire instead of 6.25U, but sadly I did have to switch to a 6.25U set since these plates are based off their old files and have been updated for the group buy. I went ahead and put on the adhesive feet, as of course board protection is important. This can come at a later time, but I also did screw in the daughter board and attach the cable as I wanted to get that out of the way. I don't think this board has as much give to it as the Bakaneko 60 due to a combination of things, so a daughter board may not have been necessary at all, but from an aesthetic standpoint I am happy it's included and it doesn't drastically add to production costs. One of the reasons I really enjoy the value of this board is this multi-layout PCB. They've managed to accommodate for split backspace, ISO, 7U bottom row, and stepped caps. The only real compromise for me is the sideways facing socket on enter and pipe, which I consider extremely minor given that it has so much support. This PCB does use Kale hot swap sockets, but since it is a Bakaneko 65, you can use any compatible solder PCB, and they do offer their own for an additional $38. Honestly, these sockets were super tight to my surprise, and I can even see a half plate with hot swap being done. As for the actual build process, I tested the PCB, then lubed these TX stabs with Krytox 205G0, and no other mods whatsoever. As usual, I also did test my stabs to make sure everything was satisfactory. Before I pop on the plate, I do want to note that because of adjustments to the plate design, this board does actually support screw-in stabs. I prefer clip-ins, but if you do prefer screw-ins like Durox, they have made a slight adjustment that I have seen before. It essentially allows the O-ring to be seated properly. Sadly, my camera died while recording the rest, but I used jwick blacks for this board. Assembly is straightforward with the floating arrow blocker. The Canon Keys variant actually does use a blocker that goes all the way down because it's cheaper. And while I wasn't able to compare the two in person, floating should have less contact points and therefore should sound better. It's also used in the original Katano files. Let's take a listen to how this sounds. As always, please remember that various factors do affect sound. I'm pretty happy with the way it sounds and feels. While it is a standard Block67 that's been modified, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. It's done right with very few complaints on my end. Due to the lack of an internal weight possibly, there are some metallic sounds brought out in some configurations. This was certainly mitigated with the tape mod, and it would have been nice to maybe see some pour-on case foam as an additional add-on. The feel isn't exactly super bouncy, but it isn't stiff either. It's hard to describe, but my hands were pretty happy after daily use. There isn't a lot to talk about design-wise either. It's a clean wedge, nothing special. The last board I used that looked like this was a tofu, but nothing wrong with that. Uniform bezels have actually grown on me for this, and the front height is actually 1.5mm lower than the normal open source Block67. While I don't mind higher front heights, a lower front height does often help with the comfort. While there are some good budget options out there at the moment, I really enjoy the Block67 because of the value and the fact that it doesn't rely on mods such as PE foam or something similar. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to secure a Canon Keys Block67 due to time and could not compare feel. But comparing them on paper, the casted Canon Keys variant with no weight is $145 and the CNC version with a zinc internal weight is $195. I've seen the casted aluminum in person and it can yield very inconsistent finishing results. The only advantage I see to Canon Keys is really the in-stock model over group buy, because they have the ability to do that. While there is a lot of good about this board as is, I think there are some areas of improvement. I found that often having so much material here near the spacebar can result in a less lively spacebar sound. It's almost dull. Luckily, getting custom plate files cut is extremely easy for this, although I have already mentioned this potential change to Eng Studio. Due to this, I preferred the aluminum plate as the other two, the spacebar was really not my favorite. If you are a bit careless with the PCB assembly like I was, you will create some blemishes with the E-coating. It's pretty minor and only internal, so not a huge deal for most. I prefer anodization like I said, but I wanted a whiteboard in my collection. Regardless of those minor things I mentioned, I still think the Block67 is one of the best options for a first custom keyboard. It has a very reasonable price and it's a joy to use. That's all I have for today. I'm Sviz and thank you so much for watching. As usual, subscribing is much appreciated and feel free to comment any feedback.